Alright, hi everybody. I think I got this up and working. It's Andrew from Crypt Bunny. It's the first public video we've done in a while with our new campaign. We did have to cut out on our usual public streams, but, well, at least I promised you a campaign diary, and I'm gonna give you one. So we had our first session last week in our Space Age Labyrinth Lord game, and it went really well. It was a fun first session. It was good to get to meet all the new characters. So not a ton happened, but we got some interesting things. So I think it was a good job. We established some of the world. We established who the players are working for. They're working for a company, a shipping company called Crane & Co. And Crane & Company is, like many of the shipping agents in that world, it's hard to make a lot of money in this world. The government's very restrictive on trade, and so to make ends meet, a lot of companies will contract out to smaller space vessels, and these smaller space vessels will carry cargo that may or may not be legitimate and give a cut to the company that helps keep their ship funded and in good shape and staffed. It's a good arrangement. I think it works out very well for the players, and they seem to be into it. But they all recently got a job. Tasha is Captain Barbara Spicloden, who insists on being called Captain Granny, a feisty octogenarian captain who used to be on a trading vessel, but for unknown reasons she had to give that up. Her granddaughter Charity, who is the ship's steward. Our new player Matt is playing as our ship's comms officer, one Bacon Ceylon, though his friends call him Bacon, and everybody else calls him Bacon too, because nobody can pronounce his actual canine beastkin name. We also have our one of our ship's agents put on there by their new boss, Jim Miles. That's played by Gabrielle, and that character's name is Xavier Rosso, a sort of mysterious figure in the background. And then you have our first mate, played by an NPC, played by me truly. It's Matt's character's cousin who got him the job. That's Mr. Arneson. Namesake to one Dave Arneson, one of the original founders of tabletop role-playing games. And we also have, in the back there, we have another NPC, the ship's surgeon. That's Dr. Cabot. Dr. Cabot is shamelessly based on Dr. Seth Hazlitt from Murder, She Wrote. I even try to do a bit of a Boston accent, yeah. He's kind of a grouchy older fellow who likes to drink a little bit, but I like Dr. Cabot a lot. And rounding out our group of officers, we have Noah's character, his second mate. His name is Silas Norton. He's a rodential beastkin. And I think that's everybody in our group. Everybody seems to like their characters. Their characters have really good chemistry together. And I completely forgot. I forgot Ethan. Ethan's character is a... oh, there's a bug in here. I don't think it likes me. Ethan's character is playing a Gref. He's a Gref rogue, but he's also the ship's mechanic. That's Mr. Goodwrench. So between these characters, we have a lot of intersecting personalities. They're not heroes. It's not a heroic campaign. This is more of a sort of a survival type campaign. And now when I say survival, I don't mean it's like, you know, they have to track all their weapons and things, but it's more of a they're surviving the climate in which they live. You know, these are dangerous times. So one thing that I didn't really explain before is that this is based on my graduate school project. I'm in graduate school. I write speculative fiction, and part of what I do is that I have created a really detailed universe. I've been working on it for many years, and this is the first campaign I've ever done based on that universe. So I'll probably do some lore videos in the future to talk about how that universe works. I like to live stream them because, you know what, I'm okay with it being unpolished a little bit, because I like to talk and I feel very unnatural when I'm talking recorded, so I much prefer to just talk to a live audience. I think somebody is in fact watching this, so if you're out there, hi, how you doing? Hope you're having a good day. Um, but I mean, that's pretty much it. It was a short and sweet session. They met up. They met up at the Starlight Club. I left a voicemail with one or two of my players as Jim Miles, which I thought was a really nice touch. It helped with immersion. I'm pretty proud of that. I really wanted to go hard into immersion in the first episode, and later I'm not entirely sure that worked out, but I wanted to go hard into immersion. I left messages. I pretended to send faxes to the players. I made it seem that there was some staffing issues at the company, and I tried to sort of out of game sort of keep them secondhand aware of these issues. Like Noah was having a hard time making his first character, so for that, I had it seem like there was some sort of staffing issue, like they were short on officers. They had to last minute, go and find a second mate from somewhere else, and I think that was enjoyable. I think I think that helped them buy into the world a little bit. Their initial meeting with Jim Miles was positive. I tried to kind of play it off that they were just sort of cogs in a machine. I'm not sure that worked well, because I really felt like that dragged. The beginning was really draggy. We went on for a long time. There were some serious bits. There were some comedic bits, especially with Mr. Goodwrench, who bought a bottle of liquor from the bar, and he apparently has some drinking issues, which the other players all found out about, and changed over the music to some traditional Gref music, which is not exactly what you'd call like swanky bar music. So they were having fun with it. Then they went down. They got a meeting. They didn't go down yet. They had a meeting with one of their fellow ships from the Crane Company fleet, the Acclaim. Their boat is the Esteem. So the Acclaim showed up with Captain Santander, who dresses very debonair, but it turns out was actually kind of rude. He was almost sort of patronizing to their crew. And I had not originally intended that. I had originally intended them to meet up with the crew of the Acclaim, to be with Captain Santander, the engineering officer Bess Sasso, the first mate Mrs. Breeny, and Mr. Eichmann, the first mate. I had originally meant them to be people who could be seen as allies or even friends, but I don't know. I think Captain Santander came off a little more patronizing than I meant to. I meant to come off as a little bit dashing and a little bit cocky, but I think I came off as patronizing, and that made the other players, especially the captain, not trust him. And that's not what I wanted, but I kind of rolled with it. I decided to roll with it, and I had them... so essentially the story behind the Acclaim being is they're not supposed to be there. That they had to make an emergency docking because they had a serious mechanical failure of some variety. I believe I said it was life support. Systems had a major shutdown because of a space encounter. I'd always kind of planned for them to have a weird space encounter, and I've been going back and forth between them encountering like a creepy abandoned spaceship or encountering a creepy subspace creature. And right before the session, I decided to go with a creepy subspace creature. So I had Mrs. Breeny talk about that much later, and the captain hasn't quite been himself. So that's the way I kind of was able to explain his behavior, but also have a way to get him back to role-playing him the way I actually wanted him to come off in later sessions. But they realize that, they see exactly how much of a toll this job can take through the engineering officer, Bess Sasso. I see that she is she's chain smoking. She's very nervous. She's a nervous wreck. So I think I used her as sort of the lens through which the players could see where their future might end up, and I was happy with how that came off, and they were very sympathetic to her. As a matter of fact, Captain Granny offered her a job should she ever need it in the future. The captain also had a chance to bond a little bit with Mrs. Breeny, who was also a part of the major controversy. So after the Acclaim had been forced to stop, they spoke to Jim Miles. Jim Miles approved it, and both captains agreed that the thing that made the most sense was to transfer the cargo that the Acclaim was carrying, which was supposedly all legit, from the Acclaim to the Esteem, so the Esteem could finish it off in a short milk run to start out the players. It's not going to be a milk run, though. But that cargo that they put on, so I had them loading the cargo, and I went through a very long sequence of the engineering crew and the various operational staff getting this ship together, and that, I think, went on too long. It excluded some of the players more than I think was healthy. Excuse me, I need a drink real quick. Yes, the good old 4 p.m. coffee. Regardless, I thought it would be good to have the players walk through it once, but I think I spent way too much time on it. I was a little bit too focused on that. So that was one point where I think immersion went over the top, and I was able to confirm that with a couple players. They felt a little over-immersed when we were going through this ship, and that was something that I do regret. I think I could have done that a lot better, but otherwise, everybody had a lot of fun with the first session. So as they're getting the crew and cargo on board, the crew's late reporting because this is an emergency. This is the Acclaim was already running late when she had her issues, and that meant that the cargo from the ship had to get transferred over really quickly, and it took a couple hours. But so in that cargo, through the manifest and through Mr. Arneson and Mrs. Breeny, they discovered that there are 4 boxes that are not on the manifest. That they had been signed for, the signature had been forged. It was not signed by Mrs. Breeny. Somebody had forged her signature. And they're not sure who, but in these boxes they find part of some sort of weapons system from a large weapons manufacturer on Elda. Named Elda. The name of the company is Elda. They're on Cassiena, which is sort of a backwater planet out in the middle of nowhere. So this was a big deal because they're not just carrying illegal cargo that they didn't know about. They're carrying a weapons system they didn't know about, or parts of a weapons system. And that bothered, I think, some of the players, but they went along with it. They decided they're going to transport this cargo anyway. They're going to do the best they can to hide it. But they also find tracking devices. So there are tracking devices in these boxes. And the captain, she has a great idea. Best idea is we're going to put the trackers on the most heavily armed vessel we can find. Actually, no, come to think of it, that was not the captain's original idea. The captain's original idea was to incinerate the trackers, but they eventually came to a decision as a party to stick the trackers on the most well-armed vessel they could find, which is a Navy vessel that they found a few docks down. It was a Navy vessel that had to come in for some emergency supplies. However, what the players don't know is that Navy vessel actually, that was actually not something I ad-libbed, which was kind of incredible, because I do tend to ad-lib a lot of situations, but the Navy vessel was not an ad-lib. The Navy vessel was always going to be there because of an encounter that's supposed to happen in this upcoming episode. So I was pretty happy with that. The trackers, as a matter of fact, the whole tracker situation, that in fact was ad-libbed. It just made sense. It made sense. I think it was Ethan was where I got the idea. He presented a really logical case for why they would have trackers, and I went along and said, sure, there are trackers in there. And I think that's a big part of DMing for a very creative and a very intelligent group. My group is really smart. They're really creative. And I think sometimes they have much better ideas than I do. And that kind of brings me to a note. I don't know how many of you watching are not experienced DMs, and I do not pretend to be a master of knowledge, but if you are an experienced DM out there and you're wondering how to plot a story, you don't plot. You don't plot it like you would plot a book. Plotting a book is, as a writer, I would know this, but plotting a book is, it's methodical. It's methodical, you want it to make sense logically, but you also have to leave room for the characters to behave and grow. That's how you make a legitimate character-moved story. Ideally, you want a union of plot and character, because if you have a plotless, character-driven story, it's going to be boring. If you have a characterless, plot-driven story, it will be stupid. So finding a union of the two is what you're looking for. But in an RPG system, you want to set beats. You want story beats. I'm also thinking about how they sort of made a movie. I'm thinking of actually the original Paranormal Activity, which is scary, but it's also realistic, because the characters in that were not necessarily given lines. They were given beats. They were given beats to hit from their characters. They weren't provided with dialogue. And that's how you have to think as a DM. You're not plotting, you're not directing the characters. You're offering them beats, and how they move between those beats, and how those beats might alter. That's the beautiful part of it. That's why it's a cooperative storytelling experience. Because you move between those beats. And that can be in a non-linear fashion, it can be in a linear fashion, but you need to be ready. You need to be ready, because they will not do what you expect them to do, and you have to be ready for that. And you should respect them if they don't want to do. Do not force them to do anything, because they will only resent you for it, and it will only mess up your own story worse. It'll make your story more illogical, and it'll make it devolve rather than evolve. The goal is to have a game that is constantly evolving, a game that is living, a game that feels real, a game that feels like the real world, because we are always changing. People are always changing, they're always growing, hopefully they're always growing, or they might in fact be doing the opposite of growing. But you always want your game to grow. You want your game to thrive, and that's part of the creative effort of making a game, is you want it to thrive, you want it to abound in creativity. And you can't do that when you're forcing people to do things. Just like forced love is not love. So anyway, I've gone a little bit off topic here, but so once they get those trackers, they hide them on the Navy ship, and Tasha, with a great roll using the new system, we switched over to Labyrinth Lord. I love it. It is simple. It is beautiful. I'm running it in a little bit more of a new school style, but I'm using old school rules in a new school way. I love how it's coming together so far. I am using ability checks, and they work surprisingly well. I'm also trying to make players roll a little less. Why rolling a little less? Why is that good? This is a game. I know it's a game. Here's the thing. If a player is clever, if a player is doing something that logically they should be able to do, like for example, why would you make a player make an investigation check if they say, hey, I'm going to go along the baseboard and feel for any kind of crack? They don't need an investigation check for that. Any idiot could do that. No offense to idiots out there, but anybody could get down and feel along the base of the wall until they find something. Anybody could go pew by pew in a church knocking on it to see which one's hollow they can push aside to get down to the crypt. So, logic is going to trump game mechanics. And that's just something that I think we kind of have to go along with. Especially, I think, with my group. Because my group, we have a lot of people who are math and sciencey people, a lot of people who are logic people. Whereas I tend to be a little bit more right brain, and I tend to think more along the lines of, okay, well, we can run with it. That's one of the things that I've had to struggle with, and I've gotten a lot better at, I think, is planning ahead, plotting directly, thinking logically about what would work and what really wouldn't work in a world of real people behaving a certain way. And my players have held me to account for that, and I'm very grateful for that. So thanks to all my very, very smart players who, as I've said before, are very smart and very creative, and they've been awesome. So if they're watching this, I hope they enjoy it, and I almost left out the end of the story. What kind of storyteller am I? So the end of the story, they hide the trackers on the Navy boat with a fantastic roll by Tasha. She rolled just under what she needed on the percentile die. And they got their ship in the air, and they are allegedly next in line for takeoff. I got some really cool Star Trek-ish music for them as they took off, and I was really happy with how it turned out. The players had a great time. We spent a long time talking afterwards, and I'm really looking forward to the second session tonight. So, folks, I hope I'll catch you up again with the plot. I'll love to do some lore videos, tell you all about these planets on the maps that you see around me, and tell you all about my whole world that I have been working on for a long time. Maybe I'll talk some more about my writing, maybe I'll talk some more about DMing, but yep, this is my live stream, and we're coming up on 20 minutes, and that seems long enough. So I'm going to sign off, and I hope you folks have a great afternoon and evening. Alright, bye now. Oh, that was awesome.